Hey, vibrant gardeners! Welcome back to Grow with Vibrant Rainbow Gardens. I'm so glad you're here today. This episode is one I've been waiting to record for a long time. Most people think gardening is about growing flowers, maybe growing some veggies like tomatoes. And sure, those are amazing, those are beautiful, those are wonderful. But today, I want to zoom out a little bit. I want to talk about something bigger. What if I told you that your backyard, even a small one, even a patio container garden, could become a safe haven, a refuge for butterflies and bees, for birds and beneficial insects in a world where they're rapidly losing habitat? Here's what's happening all around us. Concrete is expanding. New housing developments are going up almost overnight. I've literally watched it happen here. In the Houston area, stretches of open land that had wildflowers and native grasses just a few years ago now completely cleared and developed. And with that land goes the habitat. Fewer native plants, fewer nesting spaces, chemically treated lawns replacing diverse natural ground. Quietly, insect populations are declining. Pollinator populations are declining. The web of life that supports our food system and our local ecosystem is getting thinner. Your garden is not just a hobby, it can be a habitat. And right now, habitat matters. I want to tell you what it feels like to stand in my own backyard and watch a butterfly drift from flower to flower, to see a swallowtail caterpillar on my fennel, knowing it's going to become something magnificent, to hear hummingbirds even before I see them, to have native bees so busy on my salvia that the whole plant seems to hum. That's what we are building today. Let's dig in. I want to start here because I think a lot of people hear the word pollinator and think, oh, nice, the bees. Like it's a feel good cause. Yes, it is a feel good cause. But it is also a survival issue for our food supply. Let's make it real simple. A huge portion of our food that we actually eat depends on pollinators. Fruits, vegetables, herbs, seeds. Not in an actually abstract way, but in a very literal, your dinner depends on this kind of way. Think about cucumbers in your garden. Those blooms need visitors. Without a bee or a native insect moving pollen from flower to flower, you just won't get any cucumbers. You get a vine with the flowers and that's it. No cucumbers. I've been there. Most gardeners have been there. I'm talking squashes, melons, berries. All of them depend on pollinators. And your herbs, when they go to flower, which here in the Houston happens so fast, especially in our summer heat, those blooms become a pollinator buffet. Basil flowers, cilantro flowers, dill flowers, they all draw the beneficial insects that keep your garden ecosystem healthy. The zucchini flower needs visitors. The cucumber blooms need help. Your tomatoes might self-pollinate, but many of the crops we love absolutely need insects help to thrive. Here is what I want you to understand. It's not about just your harvest, it's about the whole system. When pollinators decline, we don't just get fewer cucumbers, we get weaker ecosystems, less biodiversity, fewer birds because the birds depend on the insects, fewer beneficial predators that will keep your garden pests in check. It's all connected. Your backyard is a part of the web, and the choices you make in that space, what you plant, what you spray, what you leave alone, they send ripples through that web. When we grow with nature instead of against it, the whole garden becomes more resilient. And so do we. Now, I want to talk about something that I think is especially powerful for us here in Houston, Texas area. We are living in one of the fastest growing regions in the entire country. That growth comes with real ecological consequences that most people are not thinking about when they are mowing their lawn or spraying for mosquitoes. I've watched it happen. I've driven through the areas and seen stretches of land that just a few years ago had native flowers, bluebonnets, Indian paintbrush, goldenrod, completely scraped clean, graded, flat, turned into subdivisions. Sometimes it seemed to happen almost overnight. I understand. Growth is part of the life. People need homes. But what gets lost in that process is habitat. Prairie ecosystems that took decades to develop, native flowering plants that insects and birds have depended on for generations, nesting spaces that don't get replaced when the land gets cleared. Then you add the lawn culture on top of it. Perfectly manicured grass that looks great but functions as a biological desert for most of the wildlife. Heavily treated with herbicides to keep it weed free, and in the process, removing the very plants that native insects need to survive. No clover, no dandelions, no weeds that actually serve the system. A perfectly manicured lawn is often a very quiet lawn, and not the good kind of quiet. Add pesticide use on top of it. You've got a suburban landscape that looks tidy and functions as a pollinator wasteland. The insects can't find food, they can't find shelter, they can't reproduce, and year by year the population's thin. Here's what I want you to hear. This is not a guilt trip, this is context. Because understanding the problem is what makes your little corner of the world, your backyard, your front gardens, your patio containers feel meaningful. You're not just gardening, you're creating a patch of habitat in the middle of a landscape that desperately needs it. Every garden is a vote for kind of neighborhood you want to live in and the kind of world you want to leave for the next generation. Here's what I want to leave you with before we move on. We have lost so much native prairie here in the Gulf Coast, coastal prairie that was once one of the rarest ecosystems in North America, full of native grasses, wildflowers, and the insects and birds that depend on them. Most of it is gone. We cannot bring it back at scale overnight. But here's what I learned and what I want you to hold on to. You don't need to restore 40 acres. What you need is a pocket prairie. What is that, you can ask? A pocket prairie is a small patch of land dedicated to native plants and the animals that depend on them. It can be a big win for the ecosystem. You don't need acres, you just need intention. That's the idea we are going to build on in the next section. Because when you understand what a pocket prairie is and how easy it is to create one in a suburban Houston or anywhere backyard, it changes how you think about every inch of your outdoor space. Okay, here's where the good news comes in. I mean it. This is genuinely a good news. You don't need acres of land to make a difference. You don't need a farm, you don't need a certified wildlife sanctuary, you just need a backyard. Your backyard, your balcony, your patio, even a row of containers on a front porch. And if you've never heard the term pocket prairie before, I want to introduce it to you properly. It might be the most empowering concept I've encountered as a gardener and a permaculture enthusiast. It's a small, intentional planting. The native grasses and wildflowers are indigenous to your region. It evolved here. The local insects and butterflies and birds already know how to use them. It doesn't have to be large. It can be a small 4x4 bed, a strip along the fence line, a corner of your yard. You stop moving and start planting intentionally. It is not a wild, overgrown mess. It's a curated piece of your local ecosystem. Native plants doing exactly what they evolved to do right in your backyard. Here in our Gulf Coast area, it means Gulf muley grass, which turns a breathtaking pink in the fall. It provides nesting material for birds. Black-eyed Susans, which blooms reliably and feed native bees through the heat. Wine cup, a sprawling native ground cover with deep magenta flowers that pollinators go absolutely wild for. Greg's mist flower in the fall. It's one of the best monarch nectar sources we have in this region. These plants are adapted to our heat, our clay, our unpredictable rainfall. Once established, they largely take care of themselves. They do more ecological work per square foot than almost anything you can plant. The insects in your neighborhood already knows these plants. The butterflies are already looking for them. The native bees evolved alongside them. When you plant a pocket prairie, you're not introducing something foreign, you're restoring something that was already supposed to be there. Small spaces actually matter. I want to say that clearly and directly. I know many of us in the suburban neighborhoods feel like we can't do enough because we don't have enough land. This is not true. Every patch of habitat counts. Every flowering plant is a resource. Every water source matters. So, what creates a habitat in a home garden setup? Let me walk you through the key elements. And as I do, I I want you to think about which of these you might already have and which ones you could add this season. This is your foundation. Pollinators need nectar and pollen. The more flowering plants you have, especially native or pollinator friendly varieties, the more visitors your garden will attract. And for our area, and for the South Texas area, or practically anywhere where there's a hot summer, zinnias are my absolute favorites. They are incredibly easy to grow from seed and blooms for months. Cosmos, they sway beautifully in the breeze and draw in all kinds of native bees. Salvia, especially the native Texas sages, which hummingbirds absolutely love. Lantana, it's almost embarrassingly easy to grow here. Blooms constantly through the heat, and of course, native wildflowers. You can add even a small patch and you'll be amazed at what shows up. This is something people actually overlook. Host plants. Pollinators don't just need flowers, they need specific plants to complete their life cycle. Monarchs, for example, can only lay their eggs on milkweed plants. No milkweed, no monarch, no matter how many flowers you plant. Swallowtail butterflies use dill, fennel, and parsley as host plants, which means your herb garden is already doing double duty, feeding your family and feeding the next generation of butterflies. I always plant a little extra dill because I know the caterpillars are going to find it, and I'm super happy to share. Your herb garden is not just for cooking, it might be a butterfly nursery. The third thing that creates a habitat is a water source. Yes, just like us, pollinators need water, especially when the summers are brutal. You don't need a pond, a shallow dish with some stones or marbles in it. That's it. So there's a landing spot and they don't drown. That's enough. Place it near your flowering plants and refresh it every couple of days. Simple, low cost, high impact. The next thing the pollinators need is shelter and structure. This one is counterintuitive for a lot of gardeners because it means loosening up the need for perfection. Shrubs provide nesting habitat. Leaf litter on the ground is where many beneficial insects overwinter. A small brush pile in the corner of your yard becomes a refuge. Even letting a small section of your garden stay a little wilder rather than weeding every inch creates microhabitats that insects and birds use. The next very important thing for a habitat is avoiding pesticides. You have to be real direct about this one. Pesticides that are even marketed as safe for organic gardening can sometimes, with excessive use, harm beneficial insects, especially a broad spectrum insecticide. Doesn't know the difference between an aphid you're targeting and a native bee that's pollinating your cucumber flowers. If you're committed to supporting pollinators, you have to rethink how you manage pests. Not eliminate pest management entirely. I know it's not realistic in Houston. You cannot eliminate pests entirely in Houston. Or anywhere for that matter. But we have a specific high heat and humidity which a lot of pests love. But shift toward a targeted, minimal approach. Handpick when you can. Use insecticidal soap only on contact, only when necessary. Attract beneficial predators like ladybugs and parasitic wasps by growing the flowers that feed them. A garden that supports beneficial insects is a garden that starts to manage itself. That is the goal. Okay. I want to have a honest moment with you here because I think it's important. When you start gardening for ecosystem support, when you start welcoming pollinators and beneficial insects and birds, your garden might start to look a little different than it used to. And some of that might feel very uncomfortable at first. Caterpillars will eat leaves. That is what they do. If you have swallowtail caterpillars on your dill or fennel, those plants are going to look rough, chewed up, not Pinterest perfect, not Instagram ready. That can feel hard, especially if you've put a lot of work in your garden and you're really proud of how it looks. And another thing, beneficial insects sometimes look very scary. Ground beetles, parasitic wasps, lacewings, these are the good guys, but they always don't look like it. I've had gardeners in our community message me panicking about an insect that turned out to be one of the best pest controllers in the garden. Birds might dig around in your mulch looking for insects. Your leaf pile in the corner might look like messy to your neighbors. Your garden might have imperfect plants and nibbled edges and the general air of something is living here. A perfectly sterile garden is often a very quiet garden, and when I see a quiet garden, I really feel sad for it because a garden that hums, flutters, and buzzes with life, that's a garden that's actively working. That mess often means life. That imperfection means your garden is functioning as an ecosystem, not just a decoration. And I want to give you the permission to feel really proud of it, to redefine what a beautiful garden looks like. A chewed fennel plant with a fat swallowtail caterpillar on it, that is a success story. I'm going to tell you something that I don't talk actually about a lot. The moments that meant the most to me as a gardener haven't been these amazing, perfect harvests, not just those. They've been living moments. I remember the first time my kids found a monarch caterpillar in the garden. We literally gathered around it for 20 minutes, waiting for it to come out of the cocoon. Asking questions I didn't even fully have the answers to. Watching it move, watching it take its first flight. Knowing something extraordinary was happening here. The day it emerged, I'm not going to pretend I didn't feel a little emotional. We literally watched it come out of the cocoon. This tiny creature that had started as an egg on a leaf in our backyard turned in a little corner. Now it's going to fly south to Mexico because we planted milkweed. It's not a small thing. The butterfly did not know how big our yard was, how small or big our house was, but it just knew there was milkweed here. And Recently, I got a reminder of just how much our spaces communicate to the wildlife around us in the most unexpected way. A bird, a killdeer, laid eggs on my driveway, right there on the gravel. Four little speckled eggs, perfectly camouflaged against the gravel and the grit. In what can only be described as the most confident, most terrible nest location imaginable. These birds are notorious for this. They nest on the ground, they nest on the gravel, they nest on rooftops, in parking lots. This particular bird, she chose my driveway. My first thought was, honestly, did she choose this spot because she trusts this yard? Because she watched this space, she's seen things that don't get sprayed here, there's bugs here, there is food source here, that it's safe here. I know the bird did not actually think in those terms, but I also know that wildlife doesn't nest where it doesn't feel safe. And something about that little bird sitting up. There's something that happens when you garden with this mindset that I can only describe as reconnection with the natural world, with the seasons, with the reality that we are not separate from nature. We are a part of it. The choices that we make in our little corner of earth actually matter. I've harvested cucumbers while bumblebees worked the flowers on the same vine. I've stood in my garden in early morning and had a hummingbird come within my arm's length, checking out my salvias. I watched my kids learn to identify caterpillars and beetles and bees, not because I made it a lesson, but because the garden made it irresistible. That is what I want for you. Not a perfect garden, a living garden. A garden that your family can explore and discover. A garden that connects you to something larger than what's on your dinner plate. As wonderful as that is. The more we grow, not just vegetables but habitat, the more we remember what we are a part of. Alright, I've always wanted to leave you with something you can actually do this week. Something small, something doable, something meaningful. So here are 3 options. Pick the one that feels right to you right now. Option 1. Plant one pollinator friendly flower this week. Just one. A zinnia, a salvia, a pack of wildflower seeds. One plant is a start. It sends a signal that this yard is open for business. Option 2. Stop spraying pesticides and insecticides for the next 30 days. Just 30 days. See what shows up when you step back. You might be surprised by what was already visiting your garden. You didn't know, and because the chemicals were keeping it away. Option 3. Leave a little corner of your garden a little wider. Don't clean it up this weekend. Let the leaf litter be. Let a plant or 2 go to flower, even if it looks a little ragged. Give the insects one small corner of your refuge. That's it. You don't have to transform your whole yard. Just a little is enough. Before I let you go, I want to make sure you know about a few ways to go deeper with us. If you're not sure where to start in your own Houston garden, whether it's vegetables, pollinators, or just figuring out what will actually, what kind of a gardener you are, I have a free quiz at vibrantrainbowgardens.com/quiz. It's called the Grow Zona quiz. It'll help you figure out, your garden personality and point you towards a right starting place. And if you're someone who wants personalized attention for your specific space, a design session with me or a coaching session with me, where we look at your yard goals and your reality, I do offer those separately. Send me an email at info@vibrantrainbowgardens.com to find out more. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. These conversations about why we garden, not just how to garden, are some of my favorites, and I'm grateful you're here for them. Until next time, keep planting, keep exploring, and remember, the more gardens we grow, the more vibrant our communities become. Before you go, I have one small ask. And it actually has nothing to do with algorithms or downloads. If this episode made you think of one person, a friend, a neighbor, a fellow parent, or someone who's always said, I want to grow a garden, I want to grow my own vegetables and fruits, I just don't know where to start, would you share this episode with them? This podcast grows almost entirely through word of mouth, and every share helps someone realize that gardening doesn't have to be complicated or overwhelming. It can be gentle, it can fit real life, it can start right where they are. And if you're listening and wondering what kind of gardener you are, or what your next best step actually is, I created a free quiz to help with that. It's called the Growzona Quiz, and it helps you figure out your gardening style, your biggest challenges, and what will actually work for your season of life. Whether you're a total beginner or just need clarity. You can take it at vibrantrainbowgardens.com/quiz. And I will send you personalized guidance right after. Thank you for being here, for listening, and for helping this little garden of a podcast grow. I'll see you in the next episode.